Good evening, and welcome to the latest episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host, Lockefox, and I'm here with all of the market news that you need to know, now with Burn Jita going on. So with no time to spare, let's go ahead and start where we usually do with some quick show news. We are live on Twitch and YouTube at Eve Prosper. And if you want to tune in live, you can do so on Friday nights at 0400 Eve time. That is Thursday night US, 8 o'clock Pacific. And we are live here streaming for you guys, especially if you have questions. We do run a 30-minute Q&A afterwards. Number two, I want to thank all of our patrons. You can support the show at patreon.com/eveprosper. Even $1 goes an extremely long way. It keeps our servers running. It keeps this ad-free. It keeps this coming week over week, and it helps us do the in-depth neutral analysis that you guys crave. So I got to thank our patrons every single week. Next point, I want to thank our editor, Christopher Mellen, who has been so gracious to give us his time to get the show onto YouTube in the classic edited form, so you guys can get straight to the meat of it and skip all of the pre and post show. We want to wish him a happy birthday, it seems. So go send him some love. And then last, if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to follow the show, that's easy. Go to Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. You can join our Discord, which links to join should be down in the channel info below. And you can get in touch with me on Discord is the very best way to do so. I'm also active on the Tweet Fleet Slack. Again, links to join are in the doobly-doo. I do read all of my in-game mail and all of that other goodness, so if you guys reach out to me, I do love hearing from you, especially if something I did made you money, or even if it's something I said lost you money. I like hearing about it. It's the only way I'm going to improve the show. So thank you, everybody who tunes into the show, whether that's live or recorded. You guys help keep this show running. So with that, let's go ahead and get straight into the meat of it and talk about Plex. No, let's not talk about Plex. Let's talk about the blog, because I know what order my stuff is in. So if you go to eveprosper.com, which I totally didn't let lapse because I'm bad at website management, I just published a blog about a new forecasting engine we're trying out. Long and short of it is there's this package called Profit. It's from Facebook. It is extremely powerful for time series stuff. It's hitting a lot of the points that I have been frustrated with in my amateur work. There are still some challenges to get over, but we're looking forward to actually getting this incorporated in the show probably next week. It shows a lot of promise. It's been really easy to integrate, and it's just skookum as frig. So if you want to know more, if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes of the show, you really should follow the blog at eveprosper.com or evetechprosper.blogspot.com, I believe is the blog link. And so this is the sort of plot I would show you guys on the show, that this really lines up with forgot to turn on the thing, lines up with the sort of intuition I have. So I might not have predicted this second hump here on skill injectors, but a regression back to 650 and maybe a little bit of positive pressure, I definitely would. And actually, I'd probably make this a little bit faster than it is, but we're 80% there, which is outstanding as far as a tool goes right out of the box with almost no extra jiggering with it. So just as a demo of what it might look like in the show, we've got the same plot. Again, this is just a test plot. This is just done in our templating sort of thing, where yes, this is what I would tell you guys on the show. I would expect us to come off of this high here and regress back up again. This is pretty close to what I have in my brain when I tell you guys what I believe the direction of things is going. I do want to add more facets to it, because right now there's a problem of the I'm only using price data. I'm not using any of this volume data, which I think is a lot more powerful. So for instance, without using the ribbon here, I would have told you that, well, we were in shortage for a couple of weeks, which caused the price spike. But then there's a huge supply spike, which should expect even further correction down under 640. So this is close. This is outstandingly close, but not quite on the money. And I'm going to see what we can do to add additional factors into it to try and make the system as smart as we can for as little effort as we can. So go check out the blog. All the information you need to know is on there. There's even a demo you guys can run on your own machines. The code is completely open source and can be run right off of Crest. So go check that out. And last, before we get into the show, I want to, one more time, trumpet our CSM ticket. Number 1 is Rodin. If you would vote for me as an economic candidate, you should vote for Rodin. He did a bunch of writing for the Neocom. He's running collateralized loan services right now in Eve. And if you believe in the economic game, he is your guy to back. And being that this is his first run, and it is a very packed field coming from nullsec, everyone on this ticket could really use your support in high ranks on your voting ballots. So do consider Rodin. Number 2 on our list is Commander A's. He is our guy for your generalist, high-sec, everyman. If you're tired of the null stuff, if you're looking for somebody who actually knows what it's like living in a lot of the other spaces that may not be as well serviced currently, Commander A's is our pick for the more rounded general player. And number 3, Erika Mizune is our backer, that if you are particularly industrial, she is an outstanding content expert for industry. And if you have any concerns for accessibility and quality of life features, Erika absolutely is the person to back there. So I believe in all 3 of these candidates. They're all pretty long shots at this point, if we're going to be completely honest. It's a really tight field, just like I said. So do remember to use those first 3 or 4. It's really important to load the first 3 or 4 spaces on your ticket with your dream candidates, and then as you come down the bracket, you're gonna go further and further towards settling. So to steal from real life politics, you put Bernie Sanders in your number 1 slot, or Ron Paul in your number 1 slot, and then you work your way down towards your more mainstream candidates who you'd be fine if they represented you, but you really want to vote your heart first. So for instance, this is what my first 3 slots on my ticket are going to look like, followed by a lot of the incumbents at that point. So this is how I'm encouraging people to vote. Of course, vote your conscience. I am not you. Do review the people that are out there. It is a very large field. There have been a ton of interviews from Talking in Stations and Crossing Zebras. So get educated, get voting, get out, go participate. Make sure that the council represents you, so that we don't have the problem of having no representation for the economy when Earth comes up and says that, nah, we don't need the monthly economic report. Grr. Like, this is why we have the ticket we have. So remember to vote. I'm not sure when voting opens, but it should be soon, very soon, if not currently. So do check that out. All right, now on to Plex. Thank you everybody for holding on while I rant and rave. Plex is staying steady just at the 1 billion mark. We've seen it fluctuate really weekly around the 102, 105, 1.0 mark. And if we zoom all the way out to the year-long view, we can see this extremely steady piece of work. So I had said I'm getting back on my horse from December and saying that I think that the price is being held aloft by a lot of speculator pressure. Like people really don't want the price to go under 1 billion. And the volumes just don't line up. We're seeing a lot of cash moving through the system. And I actually, given the fact that we're not seeing a lot of warfare except for Burn Jita, I expect more downward pressure on Plex than we've been seeing. Again, we're sort of at the mercy of looking back at the monthly economic numbers once we get them to really say exactly where Plex is going. It's really hard to do really fine grain Plex predictions without the monthly economic numbers. But the absolute, I keep seeing just enormous amounts of productivity, and I'm not sure where the money's really going. Actually, I expect prices to be up because everything's so hot. So that it's flat is strange. And I'm really looking forward to the monthly economic numbers, which should be out next week, hopefully. We'll see exactly what's going on once those get released, but the price of Plex is being weird. Zooming in on the day-to-day, we're seeing a lot of the buy order pressure start to evaporate, which I would expect the bottom to start falling out on this. But we're also seeing that there are very thin supplies. I had said in previous shows that 1,000 units is kind of my waterline, that if we're below 1,000 units on the market, that we should expect prices to rise because there's a little bit of a supply shortage. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing the supplies ebb down to 500K units, and the price just stays steady as a rock. So I guess this goes contrary to the thing I just spent 3 minutes talking about a moment ago, that this signal says the price should go up, that we're pretty strongly in positive price territory. But again, Plex, she ain't moving. So I'm interested to hear what's going on, especially after CCP released that they're more profitable than ever, and it's all sunshine and daisies from them. So it's strange to see things just behaving so strangely. Zooming out to the rest of the RMT market, again, we were seeing that skill extractors were leading in prices, and that margin has subsided, and we're back at parity across the board. We're still seeing the same sort of stability in multiple pilot training certificates, so there's no real variation to talk about here. Again, everything's kind of just settling into a weird stagnant rut as far as Plex and all the other RMT items goes. Next, skill trading, which was super hot last week due to a shortage, an extended shortage of skill injectors, has finally started to break, and the skill point, the ISK per skill point is still pretty good at 850 a skill point. But the prices are trending down. So if you were sitting on a zombie farm, if you have been dawdling trying to get cashed out, the time to cash out is like now, because things are going to get cheaper coming up here. And if we zoom all the way in, we see actually that I'm wrong again, but that we saw into Burn Jita a big glut of supply as people are staying home, causing the prices to fall. And then now that Burn Jita seems to have subsided, I don't want to toot that horn until the end of next weekend, that the supplies are dropping down again. So we'll see after this weekend if we stay above the 1K units mark. That's kind of my break even, whether we're going up or down. So we'll see. Skill injectors have been extremely popular lately. That despite the fact that zombies are reaching the free parity point where a new alpha can just be generated and start pulling skill points for no upfront investment, we're still seeing shortages. We're still having a hard time reaching the demand for actual injectors. And it also might be that this is unstable thanks to Plex being ultra stable. This being a secondary market for people to play the volatility in might be the other part of this picture that we might be missing. Next, moving on to our indexes. Net trade is looking pretty steady, though we can see right there the effects of burn Jita. The RMT markets of skill trading and Plex and all of that stayed steady. There's no reason to leave the safety of your favorite station when you're trading Plex, but total mineral trade is down, total ship trade is down, total general trade is down, thanks to an extremely productive burn Jita. I actually am eating quite a bit of crow on this, that I had said last week that, let the goons burn Jita. Like, who gives a shit? Everybody sort of catches on pretty quick, and all the good victims stay home. They play another game for the weekend and they come back the next week. And the market doesn't really give a shit because there's enough raw material to sort of float it for the weekend. The thing I didn't account for is the fact that the burn Jita has never been done when the ISK velocity has been this high. In years past, we've been at the 0.02, 0.04 rate that was pre-skill trading, before CCP Quant started some of his master plan work. And then now we're in a 0.7, 0.8 regime where 80% of the ISK that is generated is getting spent, is moving through the market. That means that there just isn't slack in the market to be pulled taut during a interdiction like this. There's actually breakage where the supply chain needs to be full, and that interruption actually caused a lot of problems, a lot more problems than I was actually ready to admit. So I am eating just so much crow on this. So feel free to start up your lock is full of shit rant threads, because I missed this ball entirely. If we zoom in on the actual killing stats, we see a little bit better than average destruction stats. For as destructive as burn Jita is, the total, there's still only so much total PvP. So we saw big counts increase, but not as much value as you'd expect. You might expect that we stay more sustained at this 1.5 trillion mark that we saw on the first couple of days, but we don't see that. We see things staying a little closer to the 125 mark instead, which is just barely over the general steady state. So they're extremely productive and they're hitting people that it counts on, but it's not the same as the World War B sort of impact where we saw sustained high damage through warfare, as opposed to high damage through focused interdiction. You have to cast a much wider net to cause bigger global problems than that. Next, moving into minerals. So this isn't going to show it quite well. We saw Trit being just below 4.0, and I said last week I still thought it was going down. And burn Jita proved me wrong. We saw this 40 billion unit glut just evaporate into the destruction stats. So prices were going up. We're seeing the surge come back as burn Jita operations lull. We see a huge supply glut. So I would be, for instance, especially if you're looking to stockpile, be aiming for a 3.5 buy order, put in something in a stop order in a 3.5, 3.6. And actually, I wouldn't even go 3.6. I go like 3.55 at the highest and try to catch this as it comes down through you. I don't know if you'll get all the way back to 4.0, but if you need a truckload of titanium, this would be a great chance to get a lot of that in the raw. Next, pyrite, we were down under 5.5 last week, but again, the supply shock brought us back up to 6.5, so this is why I feel like an asshole, is that if I told you to buy at 5.5, you'd be making an easy 10%, basically for free, no effort. You could have picked you could have thrown a rocket like a dozen markets and probably won on all of them. And I feel like a real asshole for not catching that the way that it played out. Again, same story. We see a huge supply slump where we go from 7.5 billion units to under 5 billion units, almost down to 3 billion units. And this causes a big price spike. Again, same advice as before, but I'd even aim lower. I'd aim for a 4.5 in this case, where if the pent-up supply comes to market over the weekend, we could see a precipitous drop in pyrite where an extra week's worth of material just dumps onto the market and people sort of panic sell down under 5.0. Again, I think this is a good stockpiling. This is extremely good stockpiling opportunity because I think we'll be back over 5.0 as our steady state. But what we usually see is this sort of behavior where we're going to see a big spike in supply, a dip in prices, and then a quick turnaround otherwise. Mexilon, our darling. I had said that I was worried about buying in, like I didn't know when to buy in. So again, this is one of those 50-50. I might have told someone that they should flip the coin, but probably not. And so we were under 70. We peaked over 75. We're back to almost 70. And again, same story. Big supply shortage, rushing of supplies back. I would be watching for a sub 65 buy order in this case, especially if you want to stock up in your capital markets. I'd even put some stop orders under 65 if you were looking for something to stock up in your capital production array. I think we're going to see the supply chain dump out almost 2 billion units onto the market in the next 5 to 7 days. So I think that just has to be absorbed into the order book and bring the price falling down. I don't think this is going to be a great long-term speculation. Like, okay, 50-50. So if you're a producer and you're building big things, your freighters, your orcas, your capitals, any of those really big items, it'd be a good chance to stock up at a price under 65. If you are a short-term speculator and you're looking to just get in, get out in less than 2 weeks, I think Mexilon's a loser for you. You're going to end up at 65 and maybe get out at 70 and hope and pray and curse until you get your 10% and just hate yourself. If you're a medium-term speculator, if you're looking for something to hold on to through FanFest, maybe into the start of summer, Mexilon is really tempting at a sub 65 price. If warfare does break out, I think that Mexilon is going to get really, really, really interesting. But I don't know when that war is coming. I don't know how you can generate as much hardware as these guys are generating and not go in and be like, lol, I'm going to go, who do I care? I've got, supers coming out of every orifice. I don't see why nobody's going to go to fight. Like, eventually you stop sitting there, you get bored, and you have, somebody has to kick somebody else's hornet's nest. So, and I mean, the chat is reminding me that there is a mining nerf coming in the next patch in less than 2 weeks, and I think that's going to have some positive pressure, but especially on Mexilon. Mexilon is mostly mined by HiSec, So I don't think that supply chain gets screwed up. We'll talk about the excavator drone problem on when we get down into Zydrene and Megasite. Next, Isogen. Again, this is the one I feel really stupid on because that sub 45, that 30 price, that 40 price that we saw it crater at, I've been stuck on this like down look. Like I thought it was going to go to 35. I really didn't. I hate speculating on Isogen right now. I've hated speculating on Isogen since Fozzie fucked with it in now 6 or 8 months ago. But again, same story as before. Supply shortage, thanks to interdiction, means that prices are up. This would have been an easy, almost 20%. And I feel like an asshole for not telling you people. So, this is a huge miss for me, and I feel really bad about it because we were in a particularly weak spot and prices went up. Again, same thing I believe for Mexilon, I believe for Isogen. I think we're going to hit 35 once the supply chain comes back around and we get back over the 1.2 billion units on the market sort of levels. So this, I think that if you were lucky enough, if you were smart enough to jump in on this train, get out now, sell it. You might be able to gamble that the Burn Jita has a rerun this next weekend, but I wouldn't count on it. I'm not hearing that news from any of my people. So, of course, if you're flying a freighter, be smart. To be honest, use a collateralized service instead of actually hauling it yourself. But in the meantime, if interdiction doesn't start again, expect a big supply glut to hit the market like a crashing wave. Noxium, same story. We were down under 300. We peaked up to 320, and we're coming back down again. Same idea. I think we'll be back down at 280 this weekend, maybe a little bit lower. Might get down to 250, but I doubt it. Zydrene. So back to that speculation on the mining drone changes. So what we should expect to see is a lowering in yields across the board. We're seeing less units mined per Rourke, essentially, and higher risk per Rourke thanks to kill mails on drones, and the expansion of the layout of asteroid fields should diminish yields. The problem is that I still think that the oversupply has been let to run for almost 4 months, and that stockpile is going to take some time to burn out. So we'll see what happens. I think that the Burn Jita wave is going to have a much bigger effect in the short term, because I don't think that your general high-sec trader is going to understand what's really coming on. I don't think that anyone except for the highest people in null industry really are grasping what the price of things will actually go to. So I still expect bad news for Zydrene and Megasite. Pyrite especially, I think, is going to take a bit of a nosedive, but we should see prices start to stabilize in the 4-week sort of time zone. But I think that the specific nerf is just going to slow the number of new Rourkes coming online rather than deter the existing Rourkes from making money. So that's sort of the expectation I have, is that we're going to be at a new high level of productivity, and that might come down 10%, but I still expect that level of productivity to be 10% higher than the carrying capacity of industry. So we'll see where that goes. Zooming in on Zydrene again. Shortage, oversupply. I'd put in a speculative buy order at something in a 850, just to try and catch some of these really low swings, maybe down at 800 if you wanted to be really, really speculative. But this is going to be a risky place to make your money back because I still think we're going to be in oversupply. Megasites, similar story. We were under 1,400, spiked to 1,500. Same idea, high supply, low supply, high supply. We should be coming off this 1,500 any day now. If you were holding on to any of this stuff that was cheap, pat yourself on the back, count your cash, get out of there, and watch some goons watching this, some goon leaders watching this and going, "Ha ha! We're gonna do the revenge of Burn Jita, and we're gonna make Locke look like a double asshole." So your mileage may vary. And last, Morphite, which is a fun one. Again, longtime viewers of the show will know that I say buy in sub 10K, sell it over 10K. There's a great chance to buy in some extended buy orders. But what we're seeing here is more the supply slump is just barely there, and we should expect it to come back over. You might get a chance again to get sub 9K buy orders, again, if you're stocking this up. But we'll see when you get to be sold out on this. There's the Tech 2 market's going to get interesting come FanFest, and I don't know how interesting. So Morphite could get tousled around. It really depends on how much Tech 2 product gets used. So we will see. I wish I had better advice than that. Next, moving into fuel, I still have this bug where it lines up the front and end. I wish please, whoever mentioned that it was time zero and time final had the same value. I owe you some sort of bounty for that because you're right. I just can't figure out why R is doing this because it's stupid. So we saw prices spiking up to 800 in the fuel isotope markets. Nitrogen isotope markets, and things staying relatively steady elsewhere. But fuel blocks, oh my freaking god! I hope you weren't using Caldari fuel blocks over the weekend because holy crap, the market bought out, completely zeroed out, and this caused a lot of problems. So now my scales are fucked up. And I don't have a good answer to fix it, but the crash here of just the whole fuel market zeroing out thanks to the Burn Jita operation was unexpected. I really didn't expect that much buy pressure on fuel blocks, especially given that we've moved to Citadels and the Rainbow fuel, that we can use any fuel. And especially with Burn Jita being such a Goon Swarm Imperium operation, and they being the highest consumers of blocks, I would have expected they would be prepared for this shock. But maybe this is a economic master plan idea or something, because the complete buyout and shutdown of the fuel market, thanks to Burn Jita, I think is one of the biggest op successes that Imperium gets to say in this particular operation. And we can really see the damage here if we zoom in. We saw the market zero out. We ran out of items. We've since recovered, but again, this spike it's a huge mess. We're already in a weak spot before, where a lot of fuel blocks it's been hard to keep enough fuel blocks on the market. This probably is due to, again, zooming in here, that we saw the margins get really thin. So what I kind of expect is this sort of 1-2 punch of margins were getting thinner. So producers cut production, thinking, well, why bother if I'm only making 4% or 5%? Like, I'll just stay home for that. I don't have to click buttons to make 4%. So we had a shortage in supply as the price was supposed to go up. But then we had the ice interdiction, which meant it turned off the supply chain even further. So we had this 1-2 punch on the supply side where demand did not change whatsoever, and the nitrogen fuel block market sold out. And when you sell out, that divides by zero essentially, and you get these huge spikes because there is none on the market, and you just buy out the entire order book until there is zero. So that's particularly interesting. We'll see if we get a surge of supply over the next 10 days. This particular news item, it makes it so that eager industrialists will probably show up to the market and overproduce, and we'll see the margins crash down again, and we may see some more instability. We'll see if we get over the 5 million units mark. It would be really interesting to see where things go with the post-burn Jita peacetime and overzealous industry coming in to screw up the market. Next, strontium continues to just stack up on the shelves, saying that there is no Sov war on the horizon. So, whoop-de-doo. Heavy water, this one's actually pretty interesting. I think this you can blame on the proposed Rourke changes. The slump in demand, I think, has a lot to do with battle Rourkes no longer being viable thanks to the proposal to what is the proposal? To not allow a panic button unless you're locked onto an asteroid, and without a whole lot of new Rourkes coming onto the field, I don't think as many boosters are going to need to be generated for that. So there's probably a bit of an overzealous correction at the moment. So I'd be watching for that 400 price to buy in a little bit. I still think a lot of people are going to be mining. I still think it's going to be extremely lucrative for the Rourkes that already exist. I don't think that the amount of nerf that they're really seeing is going to curtail the ISK per hour, especially once we recover the price of a lot of the materials. But we're going into oversupply. We should expect doubling in oversupply thanks to the burn Jita effect, and getting an under 400, maybe down to 350 would not be a bad bet to make a quick buck on this market and aim again for something in a 600. Would be sort of the goals I would set out. Do a particularly generous buy order down under 350 and jump into the thing. So this I think is a really decent speculation opportunity. Moving on to our outlier analysis, we start where we always do in advanced materials. Things have been so. If you have your finger on the pulse of the meta and looking into the future, into your crystal ball about what's coming on the horizon, mining platforms is the next big thing. And so we are really lean on details about mining platforms. We haven't heard any proposals about if they'll be active, if they're going to fully supplant moon mining, if it's going to augment moon mining and do a transition the way that ECs are doing it. And so we have things in an amount of flux that makes it really hard to place a bet. And couple with that the fact that without warfare, we're not seeing a ton of Tech 2 consumption, is that things are particularly slack in the Tech 2 supply market. So we have a ton of slack and a ton of uncertainty. Like, the best case is that you have a good amount of time to jump on when the dev blog shows up and jump on the first order effect and maybe the second order effect and make a good amount of money because there's plenty of money to be made. But the other is that we could see a big increase in the yields, which would absolutely devastate the advanced material markets. And it's unlikely, but possible. I mean, longtime fans of the show will know that I have said that I think that moon material needs to be roughly half the supply that we're seeing. And that's a bit of a hip shot. It's really not completely right, but moons were balanced for pre-Fozzie. They were balanced when Tech 2 was the top of the meta and assault cruisers ruled the day. And, when also, what was it? And Hulks were the only thing that mined. And like, you had to have Tech 2. Like there was no other decent option. And since then, we've seen a much wider filling out of the meta. And though Tech 2 Capital Rigs has done a lot to help pull the slack out of the market, Tech 2 Capital Equipment needs to die to actually make it through the system. That if nobody's going to war and nobody's losing caps, 100 at a time, then all of that productivity doesn't actually get consumed, and it just sort of sits on shelves and collects dust. So I'm hopeful that we'll see a more dynamic system, but I am not that enthusiastic that my personal proposals have made it anywhere close to CCP. That my expectation of more dynamic feasts and famine and all this other stuff would actually show up. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But I don't think that CCP is going to show up with mining platforms and say, guess what? They're POSes that look different, and you just set it and forget it the same way you do POSes, except that the engagement timers are different and maybe reactors don't work exactly the same. I think that's a shitty answer, and I have more faith in CCP than that to just show up and be like, yeah, they're just POSes, but different colored. So that's my rant. I don't know where it's going. I'm having a really hard time looking into my crystal ball on this. There's a lot of slack in the market, and there's been a couple of signals if you're wearing particularly tight tinfoil, especially in the R16 markets. Again, thanks to Commander A's for pointing that out to me. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to run the zoom in graphs on the R16s of Platinum and spacing the other one. Chromium, I think, was the other weird one. But so things are getting weird in the middle, but not at the top. And really, I expect the top to lead, and it's complicated. I wish I had better answers than this, but that's where we are. Zooming in on PI4 markets, this is going to be a great chance to lock in some bets ahead of FanFest on PI4. I think that mining platforms, if they're done right, and I have faith in CCP, at least some faith, that we will see. What will we see? We will see a decent amount of demand for PI4s to build these things. That I hope to see that mining platforms die rather regularly. I expect to see that these things are up and down, hopefully a little slower than mobile depots, but much faster than ECs, essentially. And that sort of churn would put a decent amount of baseload demand into the PI4 market. And this is a great chance to jump in on that bet. I don't expect the huge spikes that we saw thanks to Ascension and Citadel, but I do expect to see a decent amount of money to be made thanks to a slump in prices, especially in things like nanofactories, sterile conduits, and recursive computing modules. I think these are really poised to make a great quick buck, turn it around in 2 weeks, get your money in and out, and look like a genius doing it. Moving on to ships. Interesting to see the Macarial dipped so far down in price and then spiked again. Again, this is strange that the price was in so much flux, given that the supply looked to be relatively stable. This might have to do with the price of mats being shocked, where people were just selling into it this way, and then the burn Jita happens, and people who are actually on the ball reset the price, thinking that the supply chain was going to get stuck, and we actually saw speculation rather than real market stuff. But this was interesting to see. If you bought in some cheap Macs, it's a good time to get out. Next, the Sabre. The Sabre is another interesting one. It crashed and exploded thanks to burn Jita. I would not jump in on building these if you are a Tech2 producer. I don't think that the signals out in nullsec are good enough to justify relaunching your line for a long-term Sabre builds, but the prices are very nice in the short term. But I expect this to correct in by the end of the weekend. Next, thanks to burn Jita, this is actually a bet I would have to put into the future, is that Viators and Occators spiked thanks to well, screw you, I'm still going to get in despite despite all of the action. So that was actually pretty interesting. I think this will overcorrect down to 180 in the upcoming days as people get rid of them, or overzealous suppliers rush into the market and flood it. So I think there's a chance on both Occators and Viators to buy in just under their normal price. So if you needed 1 or 2 or 10, it'd be a decent chance to buy in. Especially if we're going to see a double dip, this would be great to jump in and really screw with the market. But we saw that really everything disappeared overnight. Again, Viators, we saw it spike right before burn Jita, and then during burn Jita, we saw another spike. Again, this one I think is less likely to overcorrect down, but I'd be keeping a close eye on it. Next, moving on to prediction review, where I stop apologizing for how badly I missed the burn Jita stuff, because, again, I'm so embarrassed about that. Jump freighters, this was particularly interesting. Anshars are on a spike over 8 billion, and it's really interesting to see those out of sync so much with other jump freighters. What usually happens is that these will all move together, and especially burn Jita, we expect to see a lot of Anshars and a lot of Rheas die. Those are the most popular jump freighters. Arc is popular only because it's pretty, and the spike in Anshars is kind of to be expected, though I expect if you lose a jump freighter, you're doing a lot of drinking before you buy back your jump freighter. It's particularly bad, right? Like you lose an 8 billion-isk ship. You sit on the porch with a cigarette and a beer and go, what am I doing with my life? It sucks to lose something that big. It hurts. You go completely numb when you lose something that big, and you just are like, oh god damn it, oh damn it. So as much as I expect that jump freighter pilots got screwed, I don't expect them to recover the same day, so this spike in Anshars is actually quite unexpected. Rheas are actually also behind where I'd expect them to be, given the rest of the markets. And I expect Anshars and Rheas to die at the same rate, so I don't know why Rheas didn't spike as bad as Anshars, but we also can't really see the supply level here, so we might have less Anshar producers. And if you're thinking, oh, I'll just build a quick jump freighter, they take 28 days to build. You're not going to build a quick jump freighter, so sorry. And then, last but not least, we were talking about this before the show began, but everybody who's watching on YouTube is probably going to miss that. We talked about the Hyena spiking again, and this behavior that I didn't expect to repeat. we see usually 2s will happen, but we won't see 3s, essentially. I've trained myself not to predict 3s, and then I get a 3 over here where hyenas, again, mostly thanks to the burn Jita effect, spiked again. I expect somewhat an overcorrection, but I think there's too many people watching this market because I featured it for 4 weeks running that I think it'll go back to stability pretty quickly. And last, but certainly not least, our violence report, which should be particularly interesting this week. Interesting that on our kill count, actually it should be by value. I thought the filtering was by value. We should be seeing jump freighters on this list. So it's no, it's by normalized value. So it's count times value. We should still see jump freighters on it. I think I've got a bug. Anyway, rather regular collection of regular PvP kills, not including the jump freighters, but we go out to look at value destroyed, and who's that on the top of the list? Jita and Perimeter and Sobaseki. I wonder why. Seeing that 100 billion-esque worth of ships got destroyed. 150 billion-esque worth of ships got destroyed. And so I'm probably jumping the gun. This is the thing that makes me really nervous. Is that I look at this and I say, oh, well, they were active over the weekend and they did nothing during the week. Burn Jita was just that one weekend. Now they're going to go back to doing whatever. But if I were running Ministry of Love, that's exactly the sort of thing I would think about. And so we may not see as high a kill count. We might see a half level this upcoming weekend. But odds are non-zero that we see a revenge of the return of Burn Jita for a second weekend. And if they wanted to be really dastardly, they would let this weekend go without, and next weekend show up again with the Burn Jita. I don't believe I have less faith in that particular amount, but yeah. And active regions, the Forge, you don't say, with let's see, that's 250 billion on one day, 200 billion on the next day, 150 billion on the day before that. Like, yeah, I can see 800 billion between those 3 points, right? So, yeah, definitely a productive weekend. But not that bad for catch either, with GE TAC 8 seeing quite a lot of action. Not sure who's living in GE TAC 8. Burn Jita basically filled up my feed, so I haven't been able to figure out who else is fighting over what. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end the show here. I want to thank everybody who tuned in live. We had quite a turnout. Looks like about 50 people tuned in live. You can tune in live if you want to as well on Friday nights at 0400 game time. That's Thursday night US. Do check us out at Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. If you want to support the show, the very best way to do so is through our Patreon. Even giving just $1 a month helps us out tremendously. It keeps us in server equipment. It helps us pay the editor that you guys are getting on YouTube. It keeps our software licenses up to date, and it keeps me coming back to this every week because I owe you guys that much. If you can't support us monetarily, I absolutely positively understand. Do share this stream with all of your friends. I do like trying to get the economic news out there for all of you. So if you can get subscribed on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, that would be excellent. So I can see numbers go up and to the right, just like every good industrialist likes to see. And do check out the blog I just released today. If you guys love the graphs we make and you want to look into some of the forecasting tools we are working on, examples that you can run on your machine today are available on the blog at eveprosper.com that I totally didn't let lapse because I'm bad at forms. So thank you, everybody who tuned in live. We will be back next week with more market news. And fly safe, make a buttload of money.